already, like, you can see how much we've progressed by doing just three. Like, you know, all these subtleties and sharpness and bringing contrast to certain areas. We didn't do that in the first one, but because of the iteration, we start to have new opportunities to introduce new ideas. That's one of the greatest parts about repetition. I actually want to bring back that contact shadow here. A new layer. Erase out subtly. Now we got a bit of an ambient occlusion effect there. Gonna merge it down, but I'm still gonna blend it because I don't want this to be as sharp as that thing over here. Mixer brush. And there we go. We go again. Now, here's actually a fun challenge. This is gonna turn into a way creative thing I didn't really plan or expect, but instead of a circle, can you turn that apple into a cube? I think you can. So, just try it as a cube. Right, we're gonna have these corners rounded off as a bevel. And we're gonna have a little sinkhole over here. And if it's gonna be sinking into that top part, this side's gonna be in shadow, and there's gonna be a highlight on that side because, well, that side's facing up. Right, so we're gonna use that as our guide. And we'll just kind of imply a shadow like this. And lower the opacity. It's actually easier than you might expect, so let's grab that kind of base red. And fill the whole thing in. And much like that cube assignment, we're just going to go through the motions. So halfway to black, change the hue towards a bit of a purple. Fill that in. Go back to the base color. Quarter way to black. Looks approximately right, but we're going to go warmer. Okay, going to grab that purple, and on this side of where that kind of thing dips in, we're going to just put in a shadow like this. And already it starts to have that volume and form that reads as a cube. And select both of those, move it over a little bit. And now we want to bring in some of that highlight situation. So we're going to select that base color, going to go up towards orange and go a little bit brighter. Okay, now we zoom out. Poor cube apple. Gonna lower the opacity of, yeah, we don't need line work, but I'm gonna make a layer underneath everything and just sneak in a shadow. I just stole a color from this pre-existing one. Sure. Turn off that line work over here. Let's make the background behind it a little bit darker. And don't worry, we'll clean this up. But as a painter, this is how I would recommend you think in terms of different sides of objects will be different value and different hue. If anything, that's the takeaway that I would love for everybody to kind of just really become familiar with. Definitely a huge checklist item. Okay. So from here, yeah, screw it, let's merge it all down. Okay, so this same value of the highlight, we're going to take that, and since if you have a cube that's beveled, the corners are rounded off, that bevel is pretty much a cylinder, so it's going to have like a sort of highlight here. And then everything else, we could just blend it in. Grab that mixer brush. By the way, you can cycle through the different brushes by holding Shift and then pressing B while holding Shift. Much like in that cube assignment, it's going to blend all these sides in, make it rounded. I should have put that highlight after this part. Or you just leave it like that, it's fine. We'll come back to that in a moment. All right, all these sides are done. Let's blend this stuff in. Now, when I blend this in, I don't want to take this and go too far out this way because it'll flatten the whole thing. I want to make sure it still feels like it has a circular radius at the edge here. So this is going to be a very subtle shading. Over here, it's going to be smooth all the way around on the inside. Just a smooth gradient, but a subtle shift over here. And we zoom out. Very nice. Now let's clean up these edges, make sure they're rounded. But still want to maintain a bit of a square cube-like feel. I feel like that highlight is a little bit too harsh of shift from the red. So I'm going to grab an airbrush, I'm going to grab that red base color and just sneak that in a little bit right back in there. Cool. And from here, let's kind of do a bit of a shadow treatment with that ambient occlusion or contact shadow. Let's just borrow that color on a new layer and fade out. Oops. By erasing. So let's introduce some bounce light. So we haven't really talked about this too much, but let's grab this color. And if there's a face here on this side of the cube, and kind of just take that light from the ground or the table or whatever that is, and just kind of lay this in on that side. We don't have to go all the way to the top because we're actually going to use the airbrush and erase downward like this. Now when you zoom out, it looks like a nice little reflection or bounce light. Let's make it a little bit warmer by locking the transparency and just filling that in like that. And then maybe even lowering the opacity. And you can do the same thing on the other side if you want. Kind of blend that in. Now, since we introduced that bounce light, we don't want to make this blurred. However, we are going to blur it where things are pretty close in value over here. Well, let's bring back that contact shadow over here. And erase out. If you're having a hard time with color, that's all right. If anything, as you're doing this, if you can at the very least get the values right, eventually color will become easier. Get a nice blue rim light over here. And erase out. And here I'll introduce another technique or method or trick to kind of get the values to be a little bit more emphasized. I'm going to use the lasso tool, select this whole area, Control J to duplicate that. We're going to hit Control L and make everything brighter by grabbing this little triangle, moving it this way. Okay. And we're going to use the mask tool again. So down here in the layers, going to hold Alt and press that button. Anything that we paint with white on this black area will reveal itself to be the layer. So this whole area, I just wanted it to be brighter. And we could do a bit of a fall off. Oh. Yeah, there we go. And we forgot our stem. Okay, and let's grab this same color for the highlight and just sneak that into here. Maybe even over here. No, it competes too much with the shadow when it's too close like that. All right, now we have a square cube apple. I wasn't planning on making the assignment like this, but I think it's pretty helpful if you kind of go with this. But notice a difference as we kept going. By just speaking about certain ideas and introducing them, it's starting to look better. So we're increasing the color, the proportions. Granted, we don't have to do that with the proportion, but the style, the contrast, how we're controlling the focal points through blurring and making things brighter and darker. Whereas the first one, granted, it was rushed, but it's lacking in all of that. So that is the key of iteration. I want to take a peek at the first apple we did. Yeah, I mean, just compare the control I'm exhibiting with this one over here compared to that first demonstration apple. Completely different. There's so much more, I guess, confidence and familiarity with what I wanted to do. It's kind of like an authoritative expression rather than trying to match the reference. All right, well, I went through my school time doing this assignment. I'm going to leave the last 4 blank, and you as a student, hopefully you followed along, but also do a bunch of these. And I'd say spend, multiple days, even weeks, doing this exercise, even as a warm-up in the morning. Like, it doesn't even take that long if you say, all right, I'm just going to do 3 minutes per square. And just see what happens. Paint really small with big brush strokes. I promise you'll learn something every time. Do it with oranges, lemons, limes, apples. These basic shapes have a really nice way of kind of showing you and revealing to you a lot of information that you might have missed in the past or not even thought of was even there. All right, get to painting.